Round two of the Nation Championship. We won, but it was a lot closer than people thought it was going to be. And the Baby Boks make the final of the Junior Rugby World Cup, but England gave them a game, especially when there was even numbers of players on the field. Let's get stuck in. Welcome back to Bit of an Animal, the Rugby Union, South African Rugby Union podcast here on the Global Gainline's YouTube channel, and soon to be on its own YouTube channel. Subscribe to that one as well. It should be tagged. I'm going to post it on both channels. Um, so we got a lot, as per usual, got a lot to talk about. On my screens this evening are Bandile, Jean, and Bryce. Good evening to all of you.
How's it, guys?
Hasn't.
All right, so first item on the list, gentlemen, South Africa versus Scotland. Loftus Versfeld. We won by two clear tries, two converted tries, but that doesn't really tell the story of the game. Bryce, you weren't here with us last week. What are your thoughts on the game against Scotland?
Yeah, during the game, I had mixed feelings because I thought, wow, Scotland's given us a game here. We're not managing it well, but looking at it again, I think we played quite well. I think considering I think that was the strongest Scottish team. I think one of the assistant coaches said the only player that was missing was Blair Kinghorn. So the team that we selected put Scotland competed with Scotland like that. I mean, you got to give credit to that team. And I think you also have to give credit to Scotland. I think Scotland has been hungry for this win, and it's. I mean, if you had to say Scotland were brave, I mean, this is the game where they were brave. I mean, they gave everything to the Springboks. They were matching us physically. They were cutting through our defense. But I just think there's a certain class to this Springbok team that I can only compare it to like that Graham Henry All Blacks when I think it was like 2006 or something, and then they used to be in like 20 changes, and then they would still take us to the cleaners there. I mean, that Loftus game, I mean, it's still. So yeah, I think this Springbok team now, I would put it there amongst one of the greatest professional rugby teams in the professional era. I mean, there's a certain class about them. With regards to how the game, I think that we just played well. I think when it was tight at halftime, but when our bench forwards came on, when you saw Zach Porton and I think Ulrich Lowe and these guys coming on, they really put Scotland to the sword in the forward pack. I do think I don't know if it's a coincidence or what, but when Paul de Villiers went off, it's almost like Scotland were finally free. You know, they'd break down or they finally had some freedom there, and then they started really just cutting us apart. They're getting clean rucks, quick rucks, and then I don't know if I don't know if it was a Rassi move or what, but then Chatuka somehow went off for HIA at a very convenient time because I was wondering if he passed that HIA or not. Paul de Villiers came back on, and we ended up regathering the ball and scoring a try again. So I mean, as Paul de Villiers now, is he giving Sia Kolisi some heat now? You know, because there's if Sia Kolisi gets one niggle, I think Paul de Villiers, I think Rassi has will have a lot of faith in Paul de Villiers now. But yeah, that's overall, I'm quietly pleased. I think that was a it was a good performance from a team with I don't know like 15 changes and against a full strength Scotland. That was a masterclass, I think, of depth.
Yeah, it was an interesting game. To be fair to Scotland, though, the guys that they have dropped, Blake Kinghorn and Duan van der Merwe, weird playing against a Scotland team, and we have the van der Merwe in the team. Usually they do. Um, and who else got? And Hugh Jones, Stormers supporters be well versed with. Everyone's like, oh, but sometimes I guess there was less information online back then, but when Hugh Jones initially broke through at the Stormers and then decided to leave to go play in Scotland and for Scotland, people were like, "Oh, they stole the South Africans, not South African." I had to explain to people like he's like half Scottish, half English. He just happened to like find his feet playing rugby in Cape Town, and who wouldn't want to do that? Coming to UCT and then playing club rugby and making it way all the way to the Stormers. So all those three guys got dropped, as we know from the other podcast here on the Global Gainlines, the Scottish Rugby Realm with Ethan and his colleagues. That those guys actually got dropped for lack of form, and the fact that they have so much depth. I mean, that other Edinburgh's wing didn't even make it into the team. Kyle Staines having a blinder. And then Carl Rowe, oh no, Jamie Dobie on the other side who can also play scrum half, and then Carl Rowe at the back, and then in a couple of months' time they can pick Josh Mackay as well. Josh Mackay, born in New Zealand, and now it's going to be naturalized Scottish, not through like ancestry, but just from residency and that type of thing. So I think there was a theme this week in terms of the Nation Championship in that um, really top three world teams, South Africa, France, New Zealand, in no particular order, um, in in moments shifted gears that other teams don't quite just have at the moment. So I was pleased to see that Scotland actually gave us more of a game than England did. I thought it might be that case because Scotland are good and we rotated somewhat. So yeah, and then as it relates to Paul de Villiers, really pleased for him. He's almost like a modern Heinrich Brusseau, slightly bigger, um, less of a can play eight type player. It's like we said, almost like a Jacques Fourie even. Not Jacques Fourie, Dion Fourie. Always get my Fouries mixed up. Shout out to Sibusiso who played Grand Como with Jacques Fourie. Uh, Jean, you made a poignant point on the WhatsApp group that I saw sort of echoed throughout Reddit and stuff like that. The tactical nuance of Scotland to play on the edges, but then to focus in the second half through the middle and get a lot of joy on either ways and making the Springboks adapt in both cases.
Yeah, so there's a saying in the military world, you don't want to give your enemy problems because problems come with a solution. You want to give them dilemmas because dilemmas means I have to choose between two bad options, right? And I have to find the one that's least bad. And I think Scotland really embodied that. So in the first half, they didn't really attack through the center. There wasn't a lot of counter running. But what they did do really well was they played off of our kicking game exceptionally well. They read our kicking game well, used it to gain territory upfield, and then attacked around the edges. And then second half, I think they had hoped to be within a score or two scores of us by the end of the second half, and obviously being equal to us at the second half must have just pumped their balloons to the max. And we came out second half, scored two, three tries in quick succession, and they just stayed calm and they went to their plan. And primarily, their plan was actually it's so good because it's got about three layers to it. Is so layer number one is just in the first half, they'd gone wide really quickly. So our defense adapts to that. And now our whole defense starts drifting. The moment the ball comes out, everyone drifts. And when you drift, gaps start opening up. And all they had was as they pull us this way, they've got one runner that just goes against the grain for a pop pass. And he hits that gap every time. And so that's the first and second layer. And then the really cool thing that I caught on watching it again was they actually used forwards because the drifting defenders are so used to ignoring forwards because they're so often the dummy runners. You're looking for the 12, you're looking for the 15 or the 13 or the winger coming around the corner to hit those gaps. And you just ignore the big lock next, standing here coming in on this diagonal. So I think it was a very, very well structured and very well layered attack. And having someone like Finn Russell run this particular program or this particular pattern is exactly what you want because Finn Russell is he's such a heads up player. He's just a natural baller. So kudos to Scotland for staying calm and just saying, look, we're gonna stick with our system, and then not defaulting to that every single time. Like the maturity to say, listen, this works, but we can't keep doing it because they'll adjust again. And by minute 65, they'll be shutting us down. So we'll do it, and then we'll go wide, and then we'll do it, and then we'll go wide, and then we'll kick. And just saying, look, we can get parity with these guys. We know we can get through. If we get through twice, we're level with them. So I think really all the kudos to Scotland for just absolutely, staying cool, staying calm, focusing on your game plan, not getting tunnel vision. I think it was a as good a performance as you can put up. Um, I think Bryce did hit the nail on the head there to say that, some of the senior heads stepped in and said, look, guys, let's just tighten up on defense. Let's shut them down. If one guy gets through, no problem. But let's make sure we rush back. Let's make sure we slow it down. We give our guys and we set our defense. And I think for a couple of guys, they might feel disappointed. And I'm thinking of like Embros Papier, who got pulled off pretty early despite having a solid performance. And I think it's a case of you get pulled off not because you're playing badly, but the coaches realize you are not comfortable enough in the system to adjust the system. So Grant Williams has been playing this system for the past 2, 3 years. He is so comfortable in this system. He knows if Rassi sends a message, adjust this way, adjust that way, or adjust for this, he knows exactly. I'm good to go. Papier is gonna go. I'm not sure. I'm just gonna default to what we practiced in training, because it's my first game in 8 years, or in 6 years. So I don't want to mess up. I don't want to do the wrong thing and cost us a try. And I think some guys just need to realize that, or some fans need to realize just because a guy gets pulled off doesn't mean he's not comfortable. It's the coaches saying, this guy's fresh into the system. He can't adjust. We're seeing some fancy shit here that we're not prepared for. So we need a guy who we can ask him to do some things and adjust the system on the go. But yeah, kudos to Scotland. Their kicking game on point, their attack on point. They really brought the fire. Um, and yeah, I think also Springbok fans just need to calm down. Not everything can be a demolition festival or a demolish job,
Yeah.
you know?
I want us to have adversity. Because if we just keep winning, 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 and rolling people over, and then we get exposed with like a game plan that we didn't plan for in like a World Cup quarter final. Now we're panicking. No, we need to. There needs to be adversity. We're not trying to win a World Cup. We're trying to go for greatness, right? We're trying to be the first team ever to win 3 World Cups on the bounce, right? It's not going to be easy. We're slight favorites, but the World Cup is far out. But like people are so weird. People are like, oh, Scotland gave us a game, sort of thing. And like you mentioned, look, years ago, we in a World Cup, we started Manny Libok. He played iffy and he got pulled for Andre Pollard to play the 60 minutes of the game, and people were like, "Oh no, that's the end of Manny Libok in the system." And now he's arguably our best option, but we keep sort of like rotating, and we'll get to the team that's mentioned that's been announced for Wales in a moment, because we're starting a third different fly off in the third game. So and the tactical nuance of Scotland, they just maybe don't have the depth in terms of forwards. They've got lots of loose forwards. Their locks are serviceable. They're good guys. The professional rugby players. They're good. They front row forwards, especially their hookers, can sort of maul tries and stuff like that. Reasonably solid in terms of throwing. Everybody's got their on days and off days. I think their front row forwards, we slightly edged them in terms of scrums, but we didn't bully Scotland in scrums like we did Ireland at the Aviva end of last year, 7 months ago. So Scotland are really good. They're building. Scotland, Gregor Townsend catches flack because he loses games he's not supposed to, and then he somehow wins games he's not supposed to eat as well. But to be fair to him and his broader coaching staff, because we always mention the head coach, but we also have to mention the broader coaching staff to give them credit. Um, they are doing a lot with not a lot of resources. They're putting together a really competitive team, and like you said, they were doing those runs in the second half where they weren't even running at, because usually the thing is like the forward will run at the forward to try and suck people in and then sort of like recycle, and then hopefully there's some space on the right. But no, they weren't doing that. Like you said, they weren't dummying the forward. They were giving it to the forward, and the forward's running like really not just diagonal runs, but really in between people. So we got that situation where Nchutuka and another player, Chunu, sorry, and another player were sort of in two minds at the point of like, oh, if who's supposed to tackling? It almost might have ended up in a position of them tackling each other as opposed to and then this Scottish player coming through. But to be fair to Scotland, they also didn't capitalize on some of those line breaks in the second half, and if they had, they might have won even, because the reality of the game is that we scored twice, they scored twice. Then in the second half, like the Baby Bok game, we came out and blitzed, and then we scored three times. But then Scotland scored twice, and it was just a 1-7 1 converted try lead. And then thankfully, you could see the emotion when Jesse Krill scored, and he was like pointing down and stuff. So it's like they gave us a full on game, and credit to weirdly again, friends of mine were punished for buying tickets way ahead of time. And then they were seated not necessarily at the halfway line, but like close to the halfway line in a certain block at Loftus. And then when they just spoke to people sitting next to them, or they spoke to family members of them who had bought much later, including like a day before the game or the day of the game, the people who bought much closer to kickoff got upwards from a 50% discount. That's another thing we need to talk about. We're basically punishing fans for buying tickets way ahead of time when we actually want people to do that. So if we just make the ticket prices a little more reasonable, then we'll have less of that. Because obviously, and this happened at Ellis Park as well. So it's interesting that we have two Springbok games on the bounce in the Gauteng province. You guys have way more money than the rest of us. The people in Cape Town have money, who have money, live in Greenpoint, are German. So, Padile, our front row forwards stepped up, and you're a front row forward. Your thoughts?
Yes, our forwards played really well, adapted. Like you said, in the scrums, it wasn't a demolition. There were one or two. We dominated a few scrums, but not as much as you would have thought initially. Lineouts could have been better. There were one or two that we lost, but we started gaining momentum slowly. Then again, it must be mentioned that the amount of caps that Scotland had versus us there was a huge difference there, and it's nice to see how the young team adapted. I think there was a dozen changes. So with that, it just shows that it's almost as if he was purposely putting them under pressure to see how they perform under pressure, that dynamic. But yeah, it's good because World Cup is all about pressure. So you're going to have situations like that, whether it be a card or anything like that. So to already on paper start on the back foot by having a team with only say 23 caps versus Scotland has had about 150 if I'm not mistaken. Like it was a very experienced Scottish team. So it was nice to see that we could put the youngsters on and they'd still perform, and that we adapted to what Scotland was doing in the moment. Like you said, Rassie, even though our scrum half had a good game, they pulled him off to say, hey, we need to adapt to what they're doing. And yeah, no, it was great to see.
Interesting. Grant Williams really came on and like showed his class. Damn, he's a good player. I mean, I still think Cam Roygaard, Grant Williams, Kobus Reinach, what's the French dude's name again?
Mm-hmm.
uh, Dupont.
Dupont.
Yeah. Those guys are all like the top level scrum halves right now. Yeah, we'll see how things pan out. It's interesting how much we're rotating for these first three games of the season, and then we've got a bit of a break, and then Argentina, and then I don't think there's going to be as much rotation for the incoming tour of the greatest rivalry. I think because it's New Zealand, we're going to try and we're using these four games leading up to it just to give everybody sort of the system, and then and again, like we talk about the system. Um, someone could have said, "Oh, why didn't Yaku Williams replace Caden Moody?" Well, Yaku Williams is new to the system, and Ethan Hooker understands it's been there longer, and then he got pulled in. Just like in Chunu last season, but Chunu wasn't necessarily in the best of forms, but he got pulled in. Why? And they were like, they know the system. And what's also encouraging is that um, the Rassi's also indicated that certain, I think who was, oh yeah, Zach Porthen. People were like, how did Zach Porthen jump for share? And they were like, no, Zach Porthen played and captained the baby box, and they have the exact same system we do, same calls, same plan. That's why he was allowed to jump for share, which is very sort of unusual to see a tight end get promoted so soon. Guys, we'll now look forward to the game against Wales. Let's just bring up the squad now, and another bunch of a nice mix, I'd say, of youth and experience again. Back to you, Bryce. Your thoughts on the game, the team picked for Wales?
Hmm. So I, look, I don't want to be disrespectful here, but I mean, I feel like this, I feel like this team is a little bit too strong for Wales. I mean, in terms of selection, like, I don't know what Rassie is going to get out of playing Vusi Moyo in a team that strong. I mean, is it just to see if he gels with the players or gels in the system? Because yeah, I don't know. Unless Wales suddenly finds form, it's gonna be like that Japan game in Wembley last year, where I think South Africa will just have too much dominance. I mean, that loose trio is way too strong to be selected for this game. I mean, saying that though, I am excited to see Moyo play in this team. I mean, if he plays well, then I think that'll be testament to the junior Bok and Springbok alignment. Because if you can take a under 19, under 20 flower, put him in the senior team, and he plays like he's known these players for years, then I mean, like, you can just fast track any player at that point. Then it's just amazing. Yeah, I mean, what else can you say about this game, guys? I mean,
I
it
think
seems
I
team's
think
too
it's
strong.
I think it's this is the perfect this is the thing. I read an article the other day praising Springboks and France and another team, New Zealand as well, for at times even um, for not playing a full-on super young team, but like mixing in the experience with the youth. And then you get guys who've played a lot of first class rugby, like Carlos Sari, but it's not played test rugby. So that's a different thing from like a young guy. So even people who've played a lot of rugby pro 14. I mean, Carlos Sari, Stormers product, youth system. I don't know where he went to school. Then went to the Lions on loan, and then stayed at the Lions for a bit. Then went to the Sharks, and then moved over to Bordeaux. And this is his first actual test cap. Carlos Hyde, who almost had to retire because of a neck injury not too long ago. Um, Ruben van Heerden finally getting an opportunity. I mean, he's had some sort of injuries here and there, so that's a very young lock trio, allegedly inexperienced lock trio. Ruben van Heerden a bit more older than Cobus Visser, but Cobus Visser a few more Bok caps. So I get your point, Bryce, but it's almost like the ideal situation of like putting the young players in the team, surround them with experienced guys, gives them the best opportunity to succeed, and that's why we want to keep them the momentum. In fact, yeah, a few coaches have articulated that to me. I mean, Shilyanchi's back in the system. That's nice to see. And then if for whatever reason any of the young players struggle, there's sort of like the security blanket of Damian Willemse, Miney Libbok, Marco van Staden, Ben Jason Dixon covering lock again, Wilco Low, Jan Hendrik Wessels covering Lucid prop this time, and then Andre Hofvente as the backup hooker with Malcolm Marks starting. So yeah, I'm excited to see. I don't think yeah. Whenever anybody says that, I don't mean to be disrespectful, and then Bryce throws Cymru under the bus. That's what we actually should call Wales, because Wales is just a way. It's just Wales is basically just what the English call that country, but the actual people in so Africa do suit. And then experienced center pairing, Damien Del Andy starts again. People get the two Damians confused. They get the wrong player of the match. The team sheets come out and they put the wrong Damien on there. That's always fun to see. Curtly Arnice are back. Yeah. Having spoken to Vusi Moyo once or twice over the last few weeks when the South Africa junior box were playing in Cape Town, I can say he's a very polite young man, very good head on his shoulders. So yeah, so we wish him the best. Bandile, your thoughts on this game that's kicking off at 20 to 6 as per usual. Third Saturday in a row, 20 to 6, but this time in Durban.
Sure, yeah, the four uncapped debutants, Vusi Moyo, calm and highly talented playmaker. I'm excited to see what he does at fly off in national colors. He's done well at the Sharks, so it's nice that he's getting a run up. Also, Yako Williams, explosive winger. Sorry. I'm hoping to see a lot more from him. I'm just glad he's getting this opportunity. Um, I'm hoping to see at least 2 tries from him. And Ruben van Heerden at lock, we probably were forced to place him there because of the locks being injured, our experienced locks being injured. But it's good that he gets a run. And Carl Sadie, the prop, powerhouse, tight head, receives his long awarded test start. Um, he scrummaged pretty well during the URC, so I'm excited to see what he'll do on the field.
All right. Yeah, Stan Camp starting at Lucid prop. He had a nice season last year. Very ball centric. Another ball on the bench there. Mark van Staden actually covering loose forward this time. Nice. Then again, like Herschel Jantjies, when he got dropped, he won the World Cup with us in 2019. Didn't get selected for the team in 2023. Everybody's telling me, oh, that's the end of him. Nope. He moved to Bayonne in France and kept playing well, kept being a professional, and yeah, maybe even adding. Uh, remember Cobus Reinach with his sojourns in England and France, sort of evolved and matured as a player. So I'm glad to see. I'm actually quite excited to see what Herschel can do off the bench. Jean, your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think I'm obviously very glad for Vusi Moyo and Yaku Williams to get game time. Yeah. I think the biggest thing we have to understand is you throw a young player into a test match or a young team into a test match, and there's no seniority, no leadership around them, no calm heads who've been under pressure, who've maybe lost a game or two. Um, then you're destroying confidence because those guys feel like I was put out there without backup, no guidance, nothing, and we lost and everything. I think the way Russie's doing it now is a very steady, very calm, very measured approach to say, listen, let's get you exposed to some test rugby, not the toughest teams. You're not going to jump in against the All Blacks from the get-go. It's very rare that you can drop players in against the All Blacks and they can just rise to the level, right? Um, so I think it's a very measured approach by bringing in guys like Vusi Moyo, Yaku Williams, um, in a team where most of everybody now has upwards of at least 10 caps, right? And even the guys with a few caps are at least on their second or third game. So they're a bit more comfortable. They've settled in a bit. They know what they're supposed to do and not to do. They've had some feedback. So I think it's excellent. And it also keeps an eye on next year. And I think that's the big thing people have to understand. The coaches don't set out to lose. But if we, for example, let's say Scotland had won over the weekend, I think the coaches would have been upset, but it wouldn't have been the end of the world. For them, it would have been right. Our defensive system got exposed. How do we fix that? How do we go about fixing it, right? Because now everyone's going to look to what Scotland did. How do we fix that? How do we adjust? How do we lock it up? And not just that, but I mean, giving these guys just the confidence to go out and play, knowing that Vusi Moyo, if it gets too much or whatever, pull him off, put Marty Lubbock on, put Damian Willemse on, game swings around, right? These are guys who can steady the ship. So very excited to see Apelele Fassi, third game in a row. I think post injury he's been struggling a bit. He had quite a nasty ankle injury. So I'm hoping that confidence starts to show again and we get the Apalele Fasi that really showed us who he could be last year. Um, there's not much you can say about Jesse Kriel and Damian De Allende. They're as solid in the center field as it comes. I think Kobus Reinach is who Rassi was referring to when he said he's going to bring back some injured players and see if they can go. So Kobus Reinach obviously had a pretty nasty knee injury. He's recovered pretty quickly, but I know he was using like oxygen tents and um, he had his surgery pretty quickly after the injury because the Stormers there was no more demand for him because the Stormers fell out before the Bulls did, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then obviously Paul de Villiers, Ruben van Heerden, glad he's getting a shot. Paul de Villiers really stating, he wants that number 6 jersey. Um, and so far, not much to fault him. When I compare it to both Evan Roos and Ben Jason Dixon over the weekend, I made a joke with my brother-in-law, who's a massive Stormers fan. I said, did the Stormers join the Springboks to teach them how to give penalties away? Because at least Ben Jason Dixon made up for it. He got us a very crucial turnover there. But yeah, Carlos Sadie, Malcolm Marx, Gerard Steenekamp. I would be worried for that scrum, no matter who's coming up against us. That is a hell of a front row. Carlos Sadie weighs in at about 125, 130 kgs. Gerard Steenekamp's 120. Malcolm Marx is 116, 120. That's almost 500 kgs just on the props alone. Kobus Wiese, Ruben van Heerden, another 300 kgs. That's a lot of power. That's a lot of power coming down you. If I was Wales, I would absolutely coat my hands in glue. No knock-ons. Like, rather not catch the ball at all. Just let it go out into touch. It's safer. Don't catch the ball. But yeah, very happy for everyone. And I think in terms of Herschel Yankees, like we saw with Faf, Rassi wants to make sure that we've got backups. If the worst should happen in a quarterfinal, we lose a 9, we can pull up a 9. We can fly someone in who's still fresh, who we know in the last 12 months has played at least one test match and has showed us they can still perform in the system.
Yeah. I believe Apalele Fasi played against the Barbarians, but then he wasn't selected for the England game? Yeah, the
Yeah,
England
he
game.
didn't play
And
England.
then
Yeah.
he got drafted back against Scotland. Had a bit of a up and downish game against Scotland, but still a solid player. Yeah, we're gonna see how things pan out. In fairness to Wales, they are rebuilding. They used to be like a powerhouse team, but there's many short form documentary on YouTube about how they shot themselves in the foot, and we should learn from that. Because I mean, yeah, we're flying high now, and it does really feel like when New Zealand won that World Cup after we won 2007, so 2011, and then they won 2015 again. That period in between, it was like they were imperious, like nothing could go wrong. And to be fair, after the 2015 World Cup, they still look well like the best team in the world, and then we just sort of pulled it together, and then we won a World Cup through sheer grit and ingenuity from our. So it goes to show that like you can't get complacent. France are there, New Zealand are there, even Ireland are there in and amongst it. Random shit can happen. Not England though, but then because he made me say that. But yeah, I I'm looking forward to this game. Obviously, see Jaco Williams get an opportunity. Yeah. Um, but yeah, it's like you want to surround them with, like Jean says, with experience, and we even see that reflected in our next topic as we talk about the Junior Boks who just beat England in the semi-final of the Junior World Cup. Tight game. Um, that team's also missing a few sort of senior players. So Fusimoya was there last season, winning a Junior World Cup, but he got called up to the senior team, which happens. Riley Norton was called up to the senior team, but unfortunately got a grade 3 high hamstring team out for 9 weeks now. Was 10 weeks a week ago. Although Rassi did say that they probably would have given Riley Norton a game and then sent him to Georgia to captain the team, which is interesting. A couple other players that they're missing. Kai Pratt had a foot injury, and also Kai Pratt's under a bit of a cloud now because of testing positive for some banned substances and waiting results of the B sample. Um, and then also the CIA unfortunately got quite a bad concussion, is out for quite a bit of time, which is obviously I had hoped that he would either be involved with the senior box or with the junior box right now in Georgia, and then sort of drafted into the Sharks Currie Cup team or the URC preseason team. But let's take a moment, gentlemen, to just talk about that thing that I just touched on. We'll start with you first, Jean. There's a outside perception that all of our young phenom schoolboy rugby players who look like the size of a Kia Picanto running around Paul are all juiced to the gills. Is that fair?
Look, it's a one. It's a touchy subject, and I think it gets to a lot of South Africans because um there's obviously pride, and I think anybody who's ever touched on a sport at a professional level will tell you that um, the average person doesn't know what's possible for someone like a rugby player, where you've got a physiotherapist appointment every day, you've got a massage appointment every day, you've got a team nutritionist who's monitoring what you're eating. And if you're not getting enough protein or iron or vitamins, you are taking so many supplements. I mean, it's collagen, it's creatine, it's everything. So, it's really difficult for the average person to, first of all, to realize the level to which these people are supported. It's insane the level to which they are supported. And then secondly, I think it touches a lot of South Africans because it it hurts us in the sense that, you know, the accusation is at schoolboy level. And there's a very sensitive topic that goes along with this discussion, which is, are we putting too much pressure on school children? I mean, we've got directors of rugby at high schools who don't even crack the top 50. And then they're ex Springboks or ex Blue Bull coaches or something. And you have to sort of shake your head at that a bit to say, are we really treating grade 11 players like they're already Springboks? Um, I get wanting to expose them to professional systems and strength and conditioning programs and things like that. I can support that. But having directors of rugby at high schools to me is a bit ludicrous. These guys are supposed to play rugby because they want to, not because the eyes are on my son's going to be a Springbok. And that type of pressure leads to exactly this situation. You're creating the incentive for a kid under pressure to say, well, I'm not strong enough, I'm not fast enough, I get injured too often. Um, what can help me? There's the answer that can help you. And then, second to this is the fact that our government funded lab um, had its World Anti-Doping Agency license revoked. Now, I worked in a lab and I can tell you what this smells like. It smells to me like bad housekeeping because you buy a machine, you get certified on the machine, right? Your lab gets licensed according to ISO standards. So if this lab had been served a warning and then had its license revoked, it is not because it can't do the test. It's not because the people are not smart enough to do the test. It's because the lab doesn't meet the standards necessary to say that this test is 100% infallible, right? That we know that its controls are being run, machine is being cleaned, chain of custody is being maintained. Those are the things that costs a lab its license. Weird results don't cost a lab its license. It's ordinary mundane things. So there's a big question there. Why are we not pushing that? There's plenty of private labs in South Africa who will happily sign a contract. Many of them have got a national footprint. They fly samples across the country every day, right? There's a private lab here in Centurion who's got the biggest reference laboratory in the southern hemisphere, right? I'm pretty sure Saru can sign a contract with them. I'm pretty sure they would be happy to apply for WADA approval, right? So there's plenty of opportunities here to say we can do more testing. But at the end of the day, fixing that is secondary to fixing the first thing I mentioned, which is we need current Springboks, we need current coaches, we need current legends to start speaking to adults and to children and to say, whatever you do, the needle's not the answer, right? If you're not fast enough, if you're not strong enough, it's about maybe it's not your time, maybe you're not doing the right things. Fix those two things. Be patient, right? A lot of our best Springboks weren't selected at high school. Victor Matfield didn't crack the Blue Bulls till he had earned his degree. And then he didn't stop cracking it, right? He was a B team player, but he was consistent in the B team. A lot of guys have that story. Brian Abana, our best try scorer of all time, didn't go to Cravenweek. Didn't get selected for Cravenweek. But he ended up holding a record that's standing almost 10 years after his retirement, right? So, there's all this pressure to perform right now to make a name. Just, guys, calm down. Your time will come. If you keep doing the work. Gertley Arendse was working in a butchery. I mean, imagine working in a butchery. I'd be depressed working in a butchery. Like, I can't afford meat as it is. Now I have to cut it for other people. So, you know, but I do think we need to stop getting offended and start demanding change from the people we can. We need to get current Springboks, current coaches to speak out and say, you're not going to get into the team if you take shortcuts. Steroids are a shortcut, right? And number two, we need to get those same voices on the back end to say, please, can we get proper testing? Can we get a culture of let's not do this, right? And it's not just us. You can go anywhere in the world. Doping is such a problem right now, or steroids is such a problem right now because they're illegal. It's incredibly hard to police, and you can go into a Virgin Active in Australia, in the UK, in South Africa, a Planet Fitness in the US, and someone will sell you gear. And if they're not selling you gear, they'll sell you some homegrown peptide that will turn your skin purple.
Yeah. Thankfully, it didn't help Conor McGregor this week because he's obviously juiced to the gills, having fought at 145 and then 155 and then wanting to fight at 170. Conor, if you're watching this, you ought to do us. But Dile, you've represented our country in powerlifting this year, like a couple of weeks ago. I'd really like your insight on this. How often are you tested and so forth?
So I haven't been tested in a while. I just finished another international comp this past weekend. So pending, they usually send people after that. I just think it's not done enough at the moment, partly probably because of the lab being closed down and whatnot. Also, it's also quite expensive. That's also another problem. I think there needs to be some sort of system that makes it a little bit more affordable for them to do it, because then we can increase the number of tests.
Yeah, there's so much
Us-
nuance, and I agree completely, Jean, that like I know people want to make a name for themselves, and some families for the sort of prestige of having and schools prestige of having a Springbok in their family, and then other families it's a means to of financial freedom and stuff like that. So there's that pressure, but these are children. You like you say, they should be playing the game because they love it, not because like I mean, there's lots of people who play the game because they love it. I was on a university campus and there was a kid with like a moon boot on his foot, and then I'd been involved with that university, having sort of teached at the university campus, been involved with the sports department, even though my department wasn't the sports department, and they were constantly trying to recruit players and stuff. So I asked the kid like, "Hey, how'd you hurt your foot?" And he was like, "Oh, playing rugby." He's not the biggest kid; he's smaller than me. He was playing rugby for Makassar. And I was like, okay, cool. Are you playing for the university as well? And he was like, no, no, I only play for Makassar. And then it speaks to the fact that like he doesn't play, he plays rugby for his community. And it's not even it's if anybody knows Makassar and Cape Town, it's a socio-economically struggling community along the coast. So there's that aspect as well. It's just so much nuance to this. Look, Kai Pratt's a young guy. I saw him on this podcast. I said like he was literally the biggest kid in the first game against Chile in the whole team. I realized he was a prop, and the other props like Lamini and Rambo Kobeja and Ollie Reed. These are all big dudes, but like when I saw Kai Pratt, I don't watch school rugby that closely. The Sharks message boards were like completely stoked that we signed him. He didn't look that big in the videos I watched him, and then when I saw him in person, I was like, "This literally." I expect props to be big, but I didn't expect him to be that tall. He was literally the same size, height-wise, as the lock that we were running out that day. And I was like, "Wow, this is fantastic that the Sharks have signed him." But he's a young kid. We'll wait for the B sample. Even if he made some sort of mistake, we're not going to throw people away. We were all young and did stupid things at a certain time. And can you blame somebody that age entirely? Can you sort of vilify him entirely if he made a mistake under whatever pressure he might have been to achieve what people expect of him to achieve? Because rugby players tend to be the biggest people in the class, and then on top of it, now they're like, okay, you got to play rugby, and then now you find, like John says, you're not necessarily the fastest, or you're constantly getting injured and stuff like that. Now the pressure to stay at that level overwhelms you, or you've got outside pressure from boosters or parents and so on and so forth. So we're not vilifying any young players. It is quite sad. There's also the aspect of like if you're a professional athlete, how do you like police all your what you consume and stuff like that? Somebody who dislikes you might even try and spike your shit or that type of thing. So Bryce, your perception on this sort of like quite hot topic.
Uh, Question is how professional do we want schoolboy rugby to be? Are we? It's because it feels like we're getting to this point where school rugby is becoming similar to school and college football in the United States. I don't know. It does. I don't like that culture because I feel like it's gonna lock the sport into this race to the bottom where everyone must get to the most insane athlete in the school, and you sort of lose the love for the sport, I guess. Like if like if let's say I don't have I'm short and I don't have the biggest legs, you know. But I've got a mean step, but there's another winger that's a bit bigger than me. Like I don't know. Look, I think that'll drive if it's that professional, and if even Rassi's looking at schoolboys, then I don't know. It just creates an unhealthy obsession because the fact that we were talking about Marcus Muller and all these players at school at grade 11. I don't think that's right. Because I think to even give a child that hope that they can become a Springbok in grade 11 creates the wrong incentives. I think if I think you should only look for Springboks at 20 and up, or when you go to university or something, because I think it's a much more healthier culture than schoolboy. Because I think schoolboy they're not grown yet. I mean, you haven't. Some players are bigger than others, and you'll only really see them at varsity when they're really all sort of the same weight class, and then we get to see them, you know. But I don't know. I don't know how you would even disincentivize teams to not be as professional as they are now. Because I remember watching a podcast with Jean and Rudy Page, and they were talking to Marcus Muller, and he was talking about how the setup at Paul was it Paul Gym, right? Was it yeah, Paul Gym? He's so professional, and my thing is, what's the reward? Why do we need to have all these assistant coaches and all these insane fitness programs in a school? When for me, it should just be your skill and your love for the game that gets you far. Not I don't know. I don't know how you're gonna police that because I think it's on the one hand we love that the junior box is super strong. On the other hand, it's creating this reoccurring issue of not only drugs but a professionalism that's going to become cancer to the sport ultimately.
Yeah, it's a very much a double-edged sword. I mean, I've spoken before about those highlight videos, and we see highlight videos for all young schoolboy players these days. Yeah, and but in particular, there was the one of Jorenzo Boogieman Julius where people were saying, "Oh, clearly he looks bigger in playing for Porus." And I was like, "Does he? He's just playing against people who are smaller." And therefore, he looks bigger when he got to the Sharks and stuff like that. So there's that aspect as well. But yeah, the sort of unhealthiness in terms of like putting people on a pedestal and then maybe thinking they can just because this player might become a Springbok. And schools obviously also obsessed about, oh, we've got 50 Springboks, we've got 10, that type of thing. The last thing I'll say about this is that I went to university with this guy who went to prestigious rugby school, but he didn't play rugby. He was a very, very good musician, by the way. Shout out to George from, I think the band is still going, Die Gunston. So he was in like this Afrikaans rock band, but the prestigious Afrikaans sort of rugby focused school he went to, somebody tagged him on a social media post. Somebody who wrote like a whole paragraph or two about his experience in high school. So effectively, this person tagged my friend in saying like, this is what happened in their school. So what transpired in their school was there was this kid who played uh, prop, but he was very good, right? He was like picked it, earmarked as possibly a Springbok. He didn't quite become a Springbok. He then played overseas at a team in the UK. But then this individual was sort of like in the second team ish. You got a contract basically to play in Europe, and this individual was making good money, and it seemed as if he was gonna like move on to the first team or whatever. But then this individual got uh arrested in the UK for doing something inappropriate with a young lady. And this person who wrote the thing said in Afrikaans, the whole thing was in Afrikaans. He said, "Look at this guy who you guys used to like get away with anything in school, and look what he became." It's like you guys used to talk shit to us because we didn't play rugby, because they were like the dudes who played instruments and stuff. And then this was your guy, and look what shit he's doing now. So I don't know what happened to that, but when I read it, I was like, oh damn, because there's a culture within rugby schools, Afrikaans and not, where the people who play really, really well in rugby, like get certain, maybe you don't even need to write the test, or you get the test before the time, or all kinds of like things just to allow individuals to succeed. So that's reflective of the fact that we're not teaching young people, men and women, the right lessons, and we're just saying, you're a big dude, you're showing potential. Now you just get sort of the red carpet rolled out for you. So that's another lesson we can learn. Guys, we'll go off that topic for a bit and we'll shift back to the baby box defeating England. But it was close when it was 15-15. It was pretty close, and when it was 14-14, England looked pretty solid as well. Would we have won had it stayed like that? Had neither team gotten a red card? I think we would have probably won by a much smaller margin, give or take. I think we still would have blitzed the second half, but I think there's stuff to work on, and in a good way, going into the final against France. Jean?
Yeah, look, from what I've seen, people were saying that the English fans in the stadium let out some audible oofs and sighs when their player headbutted Guillaume. Um, I I won't go so far as to say Guillaume was targeted, but it wouldn't surprise me. He's a very dynamic 15. Um, and he creates a lot of opportunities for us. I think it was a good test for the baby box. They've not really been behind this year in a specific test match, or had to fight that hard in the first 50, 60 minutes. So I think it was a good test match just to shock them a bit in their comfort, to say, you're not all that just yet. You're not there yet. It's almost, but not yet, right? So yeah, I'm very happy with the performance. I think, Yakin Ahmed again showed what's special about him, and the commentators even said it's crazy to think he almost didn't make the team. Um, you know, which is insane. He's got a massive boot. He's dynamic with the running. He's got excellent passing skills. And then yeah, Cheswell Yuster. I mean, and again, I think it's that touch of senior rugby he's played at the Bulls. And I'm not saying the Bulls coaches are great, and I'm not saying the Bulls coaches are shit. What I'm saying is he's been to another level, right? Even if it's just URC, that makes a active difference, right? You now know how fast the game needs to be, or how fast you need to be at senior level, right? So if he's making everyone seem like they're a bit slow around him, it's because he's used to playing against, well, the same guys who played at Loftus on Saturday. That was his opposition for the season. So, but yeah, I think it was a good test. I think they kept their composure pretty well. And yeah, unlucky for Guillaume that he got a red. But honestly, some people may feel it's harsh, some people may feel it's soft. I think a 20-minute red is the exact sanction that you get for that. When you are contesting in space and you're gonna jump, you need to make sure that the space is clear. And, we can go round and round and say that they both jumped, neither looked. He was the second to jump. The first player had already gone into the air. If he had looked ahead and he pulled out, that guy would have landed and he could have tackled him. No one gets a red card. We stay 15 men. So
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
it's
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 easy to
hard.
say
It's
from
hard, but
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to say from watching it on TV in South Africa. These things happen in the split second. You had to make a decision, and unfortunately, the decision. I hope the English player. I mean, he could play the rest of the game, so I hope he recovers for his game against New Zealand in the third, fourth phase playoff. But like you say, Jean, like Hillier had to make it easy to be Monday morning quarterback and say, oh, you sort of pulled out. And even if the English player had scored, would have probably been fine. We're probably okay with that instead of going down to 14. But we did go down to 14 and didn't, and we're against 14. Just for everybody who didn't actually watch the game, England lost the player to a direct red card, which you don't get a replacement after 20 minutes for a complete basically just lost his head and headbutted. Um, it butted the other the South African player, Lon Hillier. So Hillier has been sort of involved in both red cards, once as the victim and then once as the perpetrator in such a way. But he got a 20-minute red. Um, but yeah, we talk about experience in terms of the senior team. I think it would have been a slightly easier game had we had some of those players that I spoke about. Had Riley Norton been there, had Vusi Moyo been there. Siaya wasn't in the under 20 team last year, but he showed great promise. So and just was initially not in the team. Only drafted in once Norton and Vusi Moyo. He effectively replaced Vusi Moyo. What was also interesting is that if everybody had been available, where would they have shifted Yakin Ahmed in? Which Yakin Ahmed played basically flat off the beginning of the season when they toured Georgia and they played two club game, and then he was then Moyo came back from the hip injury, and I watched Moyo play uh, in Cape Town. And then Yakin Ahmed was at inside center uh, at Paul Roos. So I think Yakin Ahmed would have been in the mix here and there as well. I think they would have would have been just to see where they fit in everybody if everybody had been fit and available. Bryce, looking forward to the game against France on Saturday.
Thank goodness we had this game. I would say that. Thank goodness we had this game. Because I feel like when I was watching this game and I saw the baby box getting some resistance finally after how many months they finally got some resistance. There was a certain I don't know why they seemed to get so frustrated that they weren't putting this England team forward. They weren't finding the gaps, they weren't running over them. And then you started to see these wayward offloads, these strange things, Ahmed not kicking out. It was really one of those games where I thought, oh, is this where the pay box are gonna couple mentally? But I don't know what Kevin Foote said in the halftime. But when the baby box came out, there was this renewed confidence. There was like, okay, guys, we are better than this team. We have look at our backline. We should be cutting them apart. And then we started seeing Chiswell Euster going for it. We started seeing Kilomere going for it. We started seeing Ahmed going for it. And then it's like, oh, after they scored that first try, they were like, okay. They scored their second try, okay. And all of a sudden, it's like it doesn't matter where on the field they go. The baby box are going to run them all the way to the try line. And I think that's what made me happy today because I thought, wow, this is such a turnaround from that New Zealand game in the championship where after some resistance they just fell away. And today they showed, okay, they can turn it on. They can turn it on when they want to turn it on. It's unfortunate we're not going to get Hillemir in that final because I do think he's a class of his own at that fullback, and I think he brought some calm. He brought X factor when he needed to bring X factor. Hopefully, look, I don't know who else is at full. I know it's going to be Felix at fullback, but then I don't know who else will
Bokwana.
cover fullback
Bokwana will
after
probably
him.
cover
Yeah, Mokwana.
from the
So, but
bench. Yeah.
but I think this Baybok team still has after that game. I think they should have the mentality to put France away. I think,
Mm.
yeah. No, no, no,
But
not to be overconfident, but yeah.
were you able to watch the France versus New Zealand game? Because I wasn't.
I think I just caught like the last 10 minutes and then I saw France scoring the winning try, and then that's
Mm.
about it.
I know our colleague Sibusiso, he watched it. Shout out to Sibusiso. Unfortunately, he couldn't be with us this evening. Jean, did you catch any France versus New Zealand? Nothing. All right, so we're gonna all gonna have homework before Saturday because we gotta study the opposition because I think it's gonna be a tight. It's interesting. Like, yeah, whenever we face like quote unquote the top four junior teams in the world are South Africa, New Zealand, France, and England, right? And those are the teams that made the semifinals. And then the teams on the fringes like Wales and Scotland, so they contesting the fifth and sixth playoff. So yeah, and whenever we faced any of the top four teams, well, we haven't faced France yet. When we faced the two of the other top four teams, we really got a game. New Zealand in Gqeberha wasn't easy. England I was a bit concerned in the first half, but I kept calm. I thought we would blitz them in the second. I was a bit concerned that we didn't really kick into gear immediately when England actually scored the first points as soon as they got a straight dead. But then predictably after the second half, much like the senior team came out and really like ran the show. Yeah, also very interested to see how these players integrate into the Currie Cup after this tournament is wrapped up. Win or lose in the final on Saturday, because I know that the general consensus with the URC teams and teams in general, but most of these players are contracted to URC teams, if not all of them, that they get 2 to 3 weeks off. They don't get drafted immediately back into the Currie Cup team. And then it depends on the needs of the team. If you play open side, but they've got two other open sides, then you won't necessarily be rushed back. But all these guys are blue chip prospects. But concerning that Liam van Wyk that plays hooker for the Baby Box and the Sharks is born in England, that never goes well for any of us because as soon as he doesn't really get picked at the next level, he's like, I'm packing my bags. Steve Borthwick's on the line. Do you know how much you get paid? Yeah, Bernard Jansen van der Ridder can tell us how much you get paid per game for England. Gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the show. I encourage everybody who's watched this and got some value out of it to like, subscribe, click the notification bell, get in the comments and tell us what you're going to think about Baby Box versus France in the final, Senior Box versus Camry. Oh, and by the way, tune in later this week with myself and Rap slash Global Gainlines um, presenter. Welsh presenter Hattie will be joining me when we do the preview show. Sponsored by Culture Lab Kombucha. Shout out to Jason and the guys at Capricorn Park in Musenberg. And from myself, Bandile, Bryce, and Jean, until next week, in Rasi, we trust.